I remember the day I first heard the name Paris. It sounded like a dream, soft, elegant, distant, and impossible from the dusty roads of the village I grew up in. Back home, we didn't speak of countries like that. We spoke of rain, harvest, and prayers. But my heart wanted more. I wanted to see the world beyond the hills and clay huts, to touch a life that felt bigger than the one I had. I was 19. No money, no connections, just a passport with blank pages and a heart ready to leap. When I boarded that plane, I whispered to myself, this is it. My new life begins now. I grew up in a small village, surrounded by rolling hills and golden dirt paths that glowed under the sun. Our days were simple, fetching water from the river, helping in the market, learning from elders under the shade of acacia trees. We had very little, but we had laughter. Children ran barefoot through the streets, women sang while cooking, and men returned from the fields with stories of toil and pride. I'll never forget one evening when my mother took my hand and said, "Whatever happens, follow your heart, child. It will lead you home in ways you cannot imagine." I carried her words in my heart, especially when our family struggled. I would imagine myself somewhere far away, a city full of lights, libraries, and streets alive with possibility. School was a challenge. Sometimes I had to walk for miles just to attend class. The books were worn, the desks broken, but it was on those worn benches that I learned to dream. Imagining myself in places I had never seen. Every day, I drew sketches in my notebook of buildings, clothes, and people I imagined walking the streets of cities like Paris. Some people would laugh when they saw my drawings, saying, "Girls like you don't go to Paris. You're meant to stay here," but their laughter became my fuel. The night I decided to leave, I didn't wake anyone. I carried a small bag with 2 dresses, my notebook, and a little charm my grandmother had given me for luck. The night was quiet, the stars brighter than usual, as if the sky itself was seeing me off. I traced my fingers along the walls of my room, memorizing every crack, every painting of the sun and moon my father had drawn when I was small. As I walked past the sleeping village, I felt a strange mix of fear, guilt, and hope. I whispered a silent promise: I will return not as the girl who left, but as someone who made it. Paris was breathtaking. The streets were alive, the buildings soared into the sky, and the air was full of scents and sounds I had never known. But reality hit fast. The city was beautiful, yes, but it was also cold and unforgiving. People moved quickly, speaking in a language I barely understood. I felt invisible and awkward with my broken French, a stranger in a land that didn't even seem to notice me. My scholarship covered my tuition, but not my survival. I worked nights cleaning offices and mornings serving coffee, often showing up to class exhausted and hungry. The loneliness was crushing. The cold winds of winter and the city's bright lights made me miss my village more than ever. I realized something painful. Paris wasn't the paradise I had imagined. It was a challenge. Every single day was a battle. I learned how to stretch my tiny budget, how to survive on almost no sleep, and how to communicate when words failed me. Some days I cried in my tiny apartment, thinking of my family and wondering if I had made a huge mistake. But then I would remember the girl walking barefoot in the village, carrying a dream bigger than the hills she came from. And I'd say to myself, no. I didn't come this far to stop now. I started sketching again, dresses inspired by the colors of my home, the red earth, the golden sunlight, the flowing fabrics. With nothing to lose, I posted my sketches online, not sure if anyone would even notice. Months passed. Then one evening, an email changed everything. A small Parisian studio wanted me to design for their new collection. I went to the studio wearing my only decent dress, which I had sewn by hand. The woman who interviewed me looked at my work and said, "You have something we don't see often, Sol." I was hired. For the first time, I felt seen. But soon, that feeling turned to betrayal. One of my designs was stolen and presented under another designer's name at a major show. When I confronted them, they just laughed. "This is how the world works," they said. "Adapt or leave." So I left, jobless and heartbroken. But I also left stronger. That pain had lit a fire inside of me. I began designing from my tiny apartment. Old scarves became dresses, curtains became skirts. I worked day and night, sometimes sewing until my fingers bled. Slowly, orders started to trickle in. Then magazines noticed. Influencers started wearing my designs. Every stitch I made told a story of resilience, courage, and faith. I had turned my struggle into art, and the city that once tried to crush me began to recognize my power. Sometimes I think back to the village, the laughter of the children, the smell of fresh bread, my mother's warm hands. I realized that leaving wasn't about abandoning my home, it was about honoring it. Everything I achieved in Paris was rooted in that village, my resilience, my creativity, and my heart. I also learned a lot about people. Some will try to hurt you, while others will lift you up. I learned to navigate both with courage, patience, and faith in myself. Years later, I stood backstage at Paris Fashion Week. The crowd roared. And when they called my name, I realized that the girl who left her village, barefoot and uncertain, had finally arrived. I became a designer known around the world, traveling, meeting new people, and inspiring girls from my village and beyond. I didn't just survive in Paris. I thrived. I took the loneliness, the hunger, and the betrayal, and I made them my strength. If you're listening to this right now, maybe your dreams feel far away and your path seems unclear. Maybe the world feels cold and unwelcoming. I promise you this: struggle is temporary, but resilience lasts forever. Pain can teach you. Failure can guide you. Your dreams are yours, no matter where you start. Paris didn't make me rich or famous. Paris tested me. I became strong, successful, and proud because I refused to give up. If this story inspired you, please like, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more real stories to life every week. Thank you for watching, listening, and believing in dreams even when they seem impossible. Remember, no matter where you come from, your journey can take you anywhere. This was the girl who dreamed of Paris. May it inspire you to take the first step toward your own dream.